If you are new to this series, we have been going through every single national title claim in college football history for the FBS or highest level at the time it was claimed. At this time, we have covered all of the one-time and two-time champions and are moving on to the threes and beyond. Please go back and watch those for me after this if you enjoy this sort of thing. From here, some teams will still be lumped together and some will get their own depending on how much of an argument I feel is needed. So, let's get chronic. Prior to the college football playoffs and BCS national title game, we relied only on the polls to determine the college football national champion, with some formulas and short-lived systems in between attempting to better things. The polling system failed many times, with as many as 4 to 6 teams in contention that never even played each other. This often resulted in many split national championship years. Prior to 1965, some polls voted on their national champions before the bowl games were even played, and then saw their champion lose their final game. If you go back a little further, the first attempt to straighten things out came in 1936 with the creation of the AP poll, and was often the most respected poll for many years. But even then, the early media had their biases and favorites due to what they were familiar with. If all the writers and voters only saw Notre Dame or Yale, they would have no way to compare it to what was going on down south or out west, and usually just sided with what they knew. Prior to the AP, we had a wild, lawless 67 years of college football where many or no teams called themselves national champions, and a lot of those teams didn't even claim national titles in this era until more modern polls went back and retroactively named them national champions. Are you confused yet? You should be. While the AP poll is often the benchmark for a champion from 1936 to 1998, I would still argue that point. If the AP named you champion and nobody else did, that smells a bit fishy. Personally, I tend to side with what a majority of the polls say. So if the AP says you are the champ, but 11 others don't, I look deeper into the situation. And that's just me. You are free to do or think whatever you like.
Jerry, just remember, it's not a lie if you believe it.
And of course, I view any titles won through the playoffs or BCS title game as automatically 100% legit from the start of the video, even if you disagree with the selection committee. And yes, I have also disagreed with them plenty of times. On the flip side, any that claim a separate title outside of those official parameters I view as complete bullshit, whether the selection committee screwed said team or not. History is history, and I respect that fact, even if I dislike that fact. For the purposes of this channel, I'm only going by what the school actually claims. I will do a series covering unclaimed titles later on. I have added a layer to my tiers and now broken them down into 5 sections. 100% legit, debatable but fair, I see your argument but no, complete bullshit, and introducing 1941 Alabama, which will be reserved for the most imaginary or dumb claims that exist. California Dreamin'. Nope, not a dream. A real early dynasty and the second most successful college football program in the state, if these claims are to be believed. The team has produced plenty of good players that I'll cover in that series when I come around to them, and a legendary head coach that I've already covered in a series. Go check that one out, please. That series needs more love, as most of its videos were posted before I got bigger numbers. The Cowbears claim 5 national titles and 4 in a row. Granted, all of these happened before World War II. If this comes as a surprise, that is understandable. You won't find any championship shirts or flags online, and as best as I can tell, I don't see any championship banners or flags in their stadium. Maybe it is because their claims are so old? Nah, I've seen White Sox 1906 title banners in a friend's house. I honestly think it's just something they aren't that proud of over in the West, and the fan base perhaps isn't that vocal. Oh well, whatever it is, it'll be fun to check out these 5 claims now. The first name we need to mention in this one is Andy Smith. As I just alluded to, he is the best coach in Cal history with the second most wins and the highest winning percentage among those who coached for more than 2 years. He also coached 4 of these 5 upcoming teams, known to history as the Wonder Teams. And a reminder, as always, we are in the pre-polling era until the mid-1930s, so judging strength of schedule or any sort of hypothetical rankings are discretionary. Smith, in his 5th season of 1920, saw his team blast almost everyone by a combined score of 510-14, which included 7 shutouts. The team even defeated Ohio State 28-0 in the 7th ever Rose Bowl to cap the 9-0 campaign. This schedule did include 2 teams who were not at college in the Olympic Club of San Francisco and the Mare Island Marines. And don't let that sway your opinion too much, as both were common West Coast opponents of the time. Another noteworthy thing is that 7 of these games were played on their own turf. The Golden Bears were named national champion at the time and retroactively by many selectors and systems. Princeton at 6-0-1 is the only other team that tries to claim this title, but come on. As if the tie and 2 less games aren't enough to tell them to back off, there's more. The Tigers were only named co-champions by 2 selectors and sole champions by none. While it's true that hypothetically Princeton played a slightly tougher schedule overall, Cal did not have a cakewalk. Some researchers theorize that Ohio State would have been number 1 entering the Rose Bowl, and Cal destroyed them. The claim to 1920 is 100% legit. Next we come back to 1921, a year I've already been to 3 times in this damn series. I called Iowa 100% legit, and my overall pick is champion. I said Cornell and Lafayette were also 100% legit, but likely a notch down if they all faced each other. Then we have Cal. The Bears got through the regular season undefeated, but tied Washington and Jefferson in the 8th ever Rose Bowl 0-0 to finish 9-0-1. And for what it's worth, this was Washington and Jefferson's only loss as well, and they have a nod as co-champions by 1 selector but choose not to claim it. Also, another season where the Bears benefited from 7 home games. Cal was named champs by a handful of outlets and co-champs by another. Now, to avoid a 4-way split for 100% legit, I'll not only point to the tie, but the hypothetical number crunching implies that California's schedule was by far the weakest of all 4 teams. While I respect that hypothetical analysis, I also don't feel comfortable enough to accept it as fact. Iowa seems like the best team in the nation. Cornell and Lafayette could have probably competed, and then Cal would have been a dark horse. It would have been a fun 4-team playoff scenario. This might be a little unfair, but given that Washington and Jefferson was a small team who only sent 20 men and held their own, you know what? As a matter of fact, they did even better than hold their own, as they seemingly won on 1 play, but a touchdown was called back after an offsides call, a call considered one of the most controversial in Rose Bowl history. Another play, a W&J player slipped and fell on a certain touchdown run. Oh well, that happens. But the bottom line is, Cal was lucky to have only suffered the tie, and is also lucky to have received any championship votes. I'm calling this one. I see your argument, but no. If you say debatable but fair, I could live with that too. But I truly believe Cal is team number 4 out of 4 in this season's end. The three-peat attempt of 1922, at least in their mind, and a whole mess of teams claiming it. But let's start with Cal. The team blasted through everyone, posting 6 shutouts and only having 1 close game with USC and a 12-0 victory in a Pasadena neutral site game. The 9-0 Golden Bears were named national champions by the Billingsley margin of victory and the Holgate system, as well as being named co-champions by the NCF and Sagarin. Cornell, Iowa, and Princeton also all claimed the 1922 title. I have yet to cover Princeton, but I called Cornell 100% legit, and I called Iowa debatable but fair in a previous video. Go check those out for more context. In short, all 4 claiming titles were undefeated and untied. In the Iowa video, I explained that the Hawkeyes were arguably the weakest team with the weakest schedule, while Princeton and Cornell had considerably tougher schedules. This was basically my logic in separating Iowa and Cornell. So how does Cal fit into those? While some research would imply that the Bears' schedule was not as tough, it was still plenty respectable. The key win for them was the aforementioned USC game. USC went on to finish 10-1 as Rose Bowl champions after the Rose Bowl got tired of seeing Cal. It stands to reason that Cal would have been Rose Bowl champions and had a better looking season if they'd had the chance. Instead, they gave the team who did their only loss. An okay consolation prize and enough for me to raise a toast. 1922 Cal is 100% legit for me. 1923 is another one I've been over a lot in this series, but luckily Cal is the easiest part of it all. While the Bears did outscore their opponents 182-7 and recorded an astounding 9 shutouts, right in the middle of the schedule, they tied Nevada 0-0, a Wolfpack team that went on to finish 2-3-3. This was a huge upset tie as this team was seemingly way better than the Wolfpack, crushing some of their common opponents. The schedule also included a Game 1 against the California Alumni in which the varsity won only 3-0. The Holgate mathematical system decided they would name the team national champion retroactively, for some reason. Maybe they just wanted to stir the pot. Illinois with Red Grange and Cornell are split national champions for 1923, and for more context again, check those videos out. As for California, I mean, come on. I don't even think I'm being unfair here. This title is out there, so it's not completely made up, but the pure ego to try and claim this with a straight face is just stupid. So even with the mathematical formula on your side, this is just too ridiculous for me not to give it the 1941 Alabama tier. I would love to see exactly what numbers were put into this formula to conclude that Cal was their champion, but hey, maybe this is why they stopped using it in 1926 and halted all their involvement by 1958. 1937. Smith has now been gone over a decade after dying in 1926 from a sudden case of pneumonia at age 42, but is the program standard and legend, and likely would have still been head coach. The Bears started out with 6 straight home games and 6 straight wins, including a 20-6 triumph over number 11 USC, earned the Bears a number 1 ranking. An early November 0-0 tie with Washington knocked them down from only 1-2. From there, the team beat Oregon 26-0 and number 13 Stanford 13-0, their 5th and 6th shutouts of the season, to finish the regular season 9-1. Cal then took care of number 4 Alabama 13-0 for win number 10. The team were named national champions by a handful of selectors, but finished number 2 in the very new AP poll. Pitt also claims this title as the AP's number 1 team. I have not yet covered Pitt at this time as I'm currently rounding out the 5-time champions. Cal's tie with Washington isn't a great look, but it's not the worst thing ever as the Huskies finished 7-2-2 with a final ranking of number 13. It is, however, a worse tie than Pittsburgh and Fordham, who were each other's only blemish. On the other hand, Pitt beat nobody in the top 10 and Cal beat number 4 Alabama. Of course, at the time, final rankings were done before the bowls. Had they been done afterwards, I think the Bears jump to number 1 and take the consensus crown. I'm calling this claim to 1937 100% legit. I can understand why someone else might go debatable, but I think given the info and the hindsight we have, it would be hard to detract anything from either team making this claim. So, the Cal Bears are 3-time champs in my eyes. Pretty good, but certainly not 5. And you'd think you'd hear about them more. Lately in this series, I've been ending with my thoughts on if I think the team in question will be adding to the trophy case anytime soon, like within the next 5 to 10 years. This one is pretty easy. No, of course not. Now, it needs to be said, a generational or overlooked superstar can always show up to a random place out of nowhere, but we're going to assume that extreme acts like that aren't likely in the upcoming time frame. Cal is recruiting pretty poorly, and the best season over mid lately is 8-5 in 2019. They have never been ranked in the CFP polls, and the last time they were any sort of national threat in 2006, they still could not compete with Tennessee or USC. 2004 under Aaron Rodgers could hang at 10-2, but even then, they couldn't win the conference with USC in the way. And that was with a generational quarterback. But what about now? The ACC has some easy paths, but those paths are for above-average teams to take advantage of. Clemson will be back eventually, as will Florida State. Miami is already higher than they've been in a while. Teams like Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech, Duke, SMU, Pitt, and Louisville all seem to be on a better path. The wins will come sporadically, as will good players, but I don't see Cal even sniffing the playoffs in the next 5 to 10 years, or even beyond that. It's just not who they are. Sorry, Bears. And there we go. If you feel I was unfair or missed a piece of info, go ahead and make your case in the comments. Please go check out the other videos in this series. There is a playlist for them, and I just recently finished up all the teams who claim 4 titles, and I'm very close to finishing all the 5-time champs. And remember, this is just one guy on YouTube who did some research and gave an opinion. I'm sure I won't change any fan base's opinion on the titles they choose to boast about, and certain fan bases have made that pretty clear thus far. This has been College Football Chronicles, and I hope you join me next time.